We make hundreds, maybe even thousands of choices every single day. What to wear, what to eat for lunch, what to say in an email. Most of them are pretty forgettable, right? But then there are the other ones, the ones that feel impossibly heavy. So what happens when that simple act of choosing becomes a source of genuine, paralyzing fear? Well, let's get into it.
Have you ever been there, just stuck, totally frozen, staring at a restaurant menu like it's the hardest test you've ever taken? Or maybe it's a much bigger life decision that has you completely agonizing. It's that deer in the headlights feeling where it feels like every single option is the wrong one and the pressure is just unbearable. It's a surprisingly common thing to feel.
Well, it turns out when that feeling of being paralyzed goes from something that happens once in a while to a persistent, intense fear, it actually has a name. So let's put a label on this whole experience. And here it is: Decidophobia. The official definition is an intense and irrational fear of making decisions. Now, I want you to really focus on those two words, intense and irrational. This isn't just about, taking a little extra time to weigh the pros and cons. We're talking about a genuine, all-consuming phobia.
And that's the absolute key difference here. Look, we all have our indecisive moments, but Decidophobia is on a whole other level. The anxiety that gets wrapped up in making a choice becomes so overwhelming that it really starts to cause major distress in a person's life.
So a fear like this doesn't just pop up out of nowhere, right? What are the underlying things that could lead someone to develop such a powerful aversion to making a call? Let's unpack some of the common causes.
You can almost see how these things create a perfect storm. It might start with this deep, nagging fear of making the wrong choice, this absolute terror of failing. And that fear is often born from a past decision that went really badly, one that had some painful, negative consequences. That, in turn, can just completely shatter your self-confidence. And with your confidence in the gutter, any underlying anxiety you already have just gets cranked up to 11, making the next decision feel even more terrifying. It becomes this vicious cycle that is so hard to break.
Okay, so understanding the causes is one piece of the puzzle, but how does this fear actually show up in someone's day-to-day life? Because this internal struggle, it has very real external consequences. Let's talk about that ripple effect.
Right, because this is not just a quiet, private mental battle. It absolutely shows up in clear, observable ways that are all rooted in that internal anxiety and dread.
You can really see the two sides of the coin here. Internally, the person is just trapped. They're overthinking every little thing. Their heart is racing. Maybe they're even breaking out in a cold sweat just trying to decide. And externally, that translates into behaviors like trying to get someone else, anyone else, to make the choice for them. Or constantly needing reassurance, asking friends and family over and over again, "Are you sure this is the right thing to do?" just to calm that anxiety for a minute.
And you can imagine, when that becomes your default way of operating, the impact is huge. Think about the stress of trying to finish a project at work when you literally can't commit to a plan. Or the strain it puts on a relationship when one person can never, ever make a decision, big or small. Even just simple daily tasks can feel like climbing a mountain. It really disrupts every single part of life.
But, and this is really important, this is not a life sentence. There is absolutely a path forward. So, now let's shift and talk about the solutions. Let's look at the blueprint for taking back control and building up that confidence in your own judgment.
The road to recovery really rests on these three pillars. First, there's professional guidance. Therapy, especially something called cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, is huge for helping to challenge and reframe those irrational thoughts. Then, you support that with practical skills, like specific exercises to build up your decision-making muscles. And finally, it's about personal management, learning techniques to handle the physical stress and anxiety when it pops up.
And really, that's the core message here. Recovery isn't about flipping a switch and suddenly making perfect, fearless decisions overnight. Not at all. It's a gradual process. It's about learning to trust yourself again, starting with small, manageable choices and building that foundation of self-confidence one little step at a time.
So I'll just leave you with this thought. Whether this is something you seriously struggle with, or you just have your moments of everyday indecisiveness, remember that confidence is a skill. It's something you can build. And it all starts with making one small conscious choice and owning it. So, what's yours going to be?